right, go for it, Tom.
Yeah, cool. So I think like all of us in this chat at the moment, and probably many other people in the comment section, I've been looking quite a bit at a certain Chinese e-commerce business recently, and part of that process was basically going through and trying to figure out the competitive landscape. So I was looking at Alibaba, obviously, as many of us have been doing. You guys did a good stream last week looking at Tencent through sort of the NASPAs and process lens. And then one of the other businesses that has come up, I guess, going through that process is actually JD.com. So I was interested in maybe giving some of my initial thoughts, and if anyone else has been looking at JD either directly or just trying to figure out how sort of Alibaba fits into the world, if you've come across anything interesting kind of going through that exercise, I'd be keen to talk through that. So I guess with Alibaba, it often sort of just gets flippantly labeled as like the Amazon of China. And the deeper you sort of dig into Alibaba, the more you realize it's not really the Amazon of China, especially from a business model perspective. So like Taobao and Tmall, for example, which are the two kind of big dogs for Alibaba's e-commerce business, don't hold any inventory. They don't have any warehousing. They don't really own a lot of their logistics networks. They're sort of more just matchmaking between buyers and sellers on a lot of these platforms, and collecting fees either directly on Tmall or through advertising, almost like Google style in the case of Taobao. So it's not really an Amazon style business model, but JD.com is. So JD do own their own inventory, they do own the logistics networks, and they do own warehouses. So yeah, that's been one I've kind of been looking at. It's a very large business, like a lot of these Chinese e-commerce players. As a result of their business model, they have a lot lower margins, and they're kind of only just getting to profitability in the last couple of years. But at the same time, I guess one of the lessons from a business like, say, Costco, for example, is that low margins aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's more about, I think, having consistent margins over a long period of time. And just running some initial valuations on a business like JD.com, it comes out almost as cheap as Alibaba is kind of where I'm landing on it. It's a bit complex in trying to consider all the different subsidiaries and stuff that they own. Again, a lot like Alibaba. But I'm kind of getting to the point where, I'm kind of tossing up, do I just pick what I think is the best Chinese e-commerce player, which the way I'm currently thinking about that is Alibaba, or do I make some sort of basket bet even in China? Do I buy JD, Tencent, Baba, maybe even Pinduoduo, and kind of just buy the entire basket? Because if I look at the stocks, they're pretty much all have really fast growing underlying businesses, and all of the stocks are down quite a bit over the past few months. They're kind of all just been chucked into the same bucket. So that's sort of where I'm at with Chinese e-commerce in general, but JD.com has been an interesting one to kind of look into and figure out, because it is quite a different business model to Alibaba. And then the really tricky part with valuation of JD, I found, is just trying to figure out what sort of margins they might have over time. Alibaba has produced more consistent profits, I would say, over the past several years than JD. JD's got very thin margins, like I said, and if they can go from a 3% profit margin to a 5% profit margin, for example, that's a huge kind of like absolute change in their earnings. So that's a sort of a tricky one to work through, but it looks cheap is kind of where I'm at with it.
Brad, in your Baba research, did you look at JD at all?
Not too much, no. I'm just looking now on Twitter who's been talking about JD. It's becoming my favorite place.
Between Baba and JD, I think the biggest difference is the vertical integration that JD has, and then the approach that Baba has, where they invest with partners. So like when they were expanding logistics, they went into China logistics and invested in that company and grew it that way. Well, Baba just makes more sense. Yeah.
My question would be, if they're vertically integrated, why wouldn't their margin be better? if they're doing things in house more.
Because they're reinvesting in the business, right? To
I guess.
develop
Yeah,
that chain.
But at some point,
it's much more capital intensive.
right. But once you make the investment, I'd assume the margins would at least grow or not shrink anymore. What one would think, unless it's like really that much that they have to.
Well,
retool
Competition
or
is there. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you think about it from like almost like a Walmart or Costco kind of business model, they're not making huge margins on the individual product sales, whereas a business like Alibaba isn't making money that way. They're making money from advertising and fees, and they don't have to outlay the capital, so you get much higher returns on equity and so on, and that kind of business. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
Also, one of the biggest changes that we're seeing is that, so I think, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but JD doesn't allow AliExpress payments, right? Or there's some block over there.
Alipay.
Alipay. Sorry, not AliExpress. Alipay.
I don't know. My understanding from talking to a friend who was based in China for a while is that almost everyone accepts both WeChat Pay and Alipay, with the odd exception. JD may be an exception, but I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, so what I've been coming across is that Taobao Deals and WeChat, or some subsidiary of Tencent's chat, now they're going to start working together because of the recent regulations that have come up, the antitrust. So that's actually been beneficial, where Alibaba and Tencent are actually starting to work together in a way. And
Interesting.
JD is going to probably not benefit as much, because now you have the large companies actually coming together, and they might just start putting even more pressure on the margins of JD and Pinduoduo, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess with Alibaba, the one of almost like the free lottery ticket type things, or one of the big drivers for future growth is the cloud business as well, which I think JD does have some sort of cloud business, but it's minuscule compared to Alibaba.
Yeah, clearly, it's not a winner-take-all situation. Like, you can have multiple players in the cloud space. I think Brad also recently tweeted something about Ali Cloud.
I did.
Being larger. Yeah.
Go follow Brad on Twitter.
Did you do some digging into Ali Cloud?
Just kind of back of the napkin estimates for what it could be in 5 years based on kind of where it's been and what's unfolding there. Yeah, it's compelling.